Hey everyone, it's Daniel again. In the first video of our new career chat series, we talked about things you should know before your first interview. For instance, you should research the company, have appropriate professional attire, have a good greeting rehearsed, and also have an appropriate Zoom background if you're doing an online interview. In today's video, I want to talk to you about interview questions, specifically how to answer them and what to anticipate. Tip number 1. In that first interview, when you finally sit down after your greeting, I would be willing to bet the first thing they say to you is this: tell me about yourself. Well, that question needs to be answered in what we call the 30-second interview or the elevator pitch. Our other career specialist, Jennifer Harrod, is going to be doing a video that goes in depth on that, but it essentially is this: you can loop in your past, your present, and your future and make your relevant future goals part of your About Me speech. Tip number 2, some of the questions that employers might ask you can be personal questions, such as tell me about yourself, tell me about some strengths or weaknesses or future goals. Some educational types of questions like, why did you choose your major? What do you want to do with your major? Or, if you could do it over again, would you choose the same major? Some other questions that might be asked are called behavioral questions, and these are arguably some of the toughest questions to answer. Tip number 3, to answer those behavioral types of questions, such as, tell me about a time when you worked with a difficult coworker. How did you handle that situation? Or, tell me about a time when you had to meet a tight deadline. Did you meet it, and how? These types of behavioral questions usually keep you on your toes, but there is a foolproof method how to answer them, and it's called the STAR method, which means situation, task, action, and result. So for instance, if you were asked that behavioral type of question of, tell me about a time when you had to work with a difficult coworker, you would outline the situation, outline the task that needed to be accomplished, tell them about your actions, and then finish it as a result, we accomplished this or that. Again, this method is pretty much foolproof. And I want to be clear here, when you're answering these behavioral types of questions, do not be modest and not be humble, because employers want to know what you did. They probably know that you can work on a team and be a team player. But again, you don't want to be too cocky or too arrogant and not be humble and modest, because employers want to know what you can do and what you can bring to the table. So again, the STAR method: situation, task, action, result. The next tip is something that's a bit of a personal pet peeve of mine that I have discovered others do not like as well. And it's called uptalk or upspeak, where everything is with an inflection, where you talk like this, and it's a question with everything you say. I'm gonna go ahead and tell you right now, I've been on the other side of the table when I interview people, and we see that in the younger generations, this is very common to answer questions like this. So yeah, try not to use those filler words either, because I'll tell you why. It distracts from your content, and if I'm on the other side of the table interviewing you, that's probably what I'm gonna focus on. So a good way to get around this is to stand in front of the mirror and rehearse, or do it in front of others so they can give you some positive, constructive feedback on your uptalking. Last tip, I would be willing to bet that at the very end of your interview, the employer is going to say this: do you have any questions for us? 100% of the time, your answer has to be, yes, I do have questions. Here are some examples of questions that you can ask. How is success measured in this position? Can you tell me about your company's strengths and weaknesses? Do you encourage your employees to seek out professional development or stay abreast of current industry trends? I cannot stress to you enough that you need to ask questions. If you want some ideas on how to answer some behavioral type questions, or what questions you should and can ask employers, please stop by our office in Tichenor 308, or feel free to email me. I have about 3.5 pages of material that I can give you that I know is going to benefit you. Like the last video, this one is in no way comprehensive, so the best option is to stop by our office in Tichenor 308 or contact us through email. One last little tip, be prepared to answer those crazy off-the-wall interview questions. I had an interview one time where the very first thing they asked me was, tell me your 3 favorite TV shows. I pretty much panicked because I didn't expect that. I ended up naming 2 TV shows and a movie. So be prepared for those kinds of questions. In our next video, our other career specialist, Jennifer Harrett, is going to be talking about elevator pitches or the 30-second commercial.